4.3 billion people live across this vast continent called Asia. We are telling their stories. On this edition, a community in peril, their idyllic existence that could soon be paradise lost. Tuvalu's fight against climate change. Community protectors, working to save Japan's capital from total destruction. By the mega quake, scientists warn could happen soon. And in a culture that considered baby girls a burden, not a blessing, this community leader succeeded in changing minds. I'm Roe Ruttenberg, and this is Assignment Asia. Welcome to the program. Well, for many people, there's nothing better than the comforts of home. But what if your home stood a serious chance of disappearing? For an entire country in the South Pacific, that could actually happen in the coming years. I recently traveled to the island nation of Tuvalu, where the water has been a source of livelihood for generations, but it now threatens to drive its people away. The gentle pulse of the Pacific. The welcomed waves marking time in a place where time seems endless. This is Tuvalu, 26 square kilometers of islands and atolls, tucked away, almost forgotten, in the South Pacific. But the waters that have fueled the way of life here for centuries may now be its biggest threat. Scientists warn that by the end of this century, rising global sea levels may submerge this island nation, making its 10,000 people the world's first official climate refugees. But being here, you might not know it. Tuvaluans are a happy people, and it's infectious. This is Tuvalu's Prime Minister. He has become the country's most vocal climate change activist, both at home and abroad. Some have suggested his people should prepare to leave.
People here don't want to leave their land. And it is immoral just to push these people to say you can go and live in Australia or wherever in other lands. That's not stopping climate change. It's quite beside the point. The situation is dire. We don't have to look at the statistics. We don't have to look at science or no economics or a political argument. My message is very, very simple. You have to save Tuvalu in order to save the planet.
Tuvalu is actually a series of islands and atolls, and I'm standing on one of the biggest ones. Behind me is a saltwater lagoon, and just a few steps away is the ocean. The land is pretty much flat and sits about a meter above sea level, making this country particularly vulnerable. Changing weather patterns aren't helping the odds of survival either. Tuvalu has suffered from 3 droughts in a row. In 2011, the country declared a state of emergency.
Temperature is a key element that if it actually changes, as it changes now, by means of increasing, it is very possible that it is the cause of these extremes that we are actually experiencing more frequently.
Hiliavave has been running the country's around-the-clock meteorological center for more than 3 decades. Her responsibilities include monitoring the rising tides.
In the 1980s, when I was starting working here, it's only January and February that we can get flooded from these high tides, but not now. Now we can actually get flooded in other months.
The water is said to have reached the top of these church steps. That hasn't fazed the faithful. 80-year-old Kauseli Kaisami was born and raised in Tuvalu. She says she's seen it all. She thanks God for creating the islands, but blames man for destroying them.
I'm worrying about my children and my grandchildren because I don't know how this problem will take long. And I want for them to be in a safe place. And I tell them, if something happens, they must leave Tuvalu.
But some say the bigger threat may not be what's happening around the islands, but rather what's happening on them. Half of all Tuvaluans now live on the main island. Though many rely on subsistence work, like fishing, to survive, others have come looking for more structured employment. This is just one of a dozen so-called borrowed pits on the island. They were dug out by the Americans during World War II. The rocks from here were borrowed, hence the name, to build a landing strip. As you can see, they're now mostly filled with trash. This, experts say, is the effect of population pressure. More people, more consumption. Tuvaluans import nearly everything, export nearly nothing. Mounting rubbish, activists warn, is slowly poisoning the environment the people here so desperately rely upon.
In order for us to achieve that goal of making Tuvalu the cleanest, we have to work together as a nation, as a community, as a family, in doing the right thing at the right time.
Indeed, the government is trying to change behaviors. That involves reforming legislation and education, getting people to think today about tomorrow. But it also means strengthening defenses, tackling Tuvalu's disappearing shorelines. Working with Japanese scientists, researchers here are now exploring new ways to increase production of baculogypsina, or star sand.
When they die, they've broken off their spine, and they are only left with their shell, which is means really hard. That means like they become a sand, and actually they will contribute to the formation of most of the island.
But that may not be enough. Tuvaluan leaders say this is a crisis, and one which extends beyond their country.
This is no longer a jurisdictional issue. It is a cross-border humanity security issue. We have to really think and think outside the box. Are we the world that bad, immorally very bad, to forget about the plight of these people? It doesn't matter whether it's 10,000 or 10 million people. We have to save humanity.
A recently coined slogan meant to promote the country is Timeless Tuvalu. But if predictions are right, that time may be running out. A rare glimpse there into Tuvalu and the threat faced by its people. Well, stay with us when we come back, bracing for the big one, how the Japanese capital is preparing for a major disaster that could strike soon. Our stories this week focus on communities. And in Japan, not just one community, but the entire capital is facing a looming threat that could literally reduce the city to rubble. In a country where earthquakes are frequent, scientists predict that Tokyo is due for a megaquake in the not too distant future. Mike Fern met 3 individuals who are doing their part to ensure that Tokyo's citizens remain safe and that the city remains standing.
It came without warning. At 2:46 p.m. on March 11th, 2011, the ground in northeastern Japan started to move. Buildings up and down the eastern coast started to shake. In the capital, Tokyo, more than 500 kilometers from the epicenter, buildings were rocked to their foundations. Concrete walls buckled. 6 terrifying minutes. But when the shaking stopped, remarkably, in the capital and in many other areas, little damage was done.
Japan has had a lot of experience with earthquakes, and Japanese institutions, academic and otherwise, continue studying seismic engineering on an ongoing basis with that experience. And then this is an interesting...
Meet Riccardo Tusani, born in Italy and educated in Australia and the US. He's run his own architecture firm in Tokyo for the past 16 years. And when it comes to designing structures that can withstand earthquakes, Tusani has had a lot of practice. With billionaire clients demanding unique and modern designs, Tusani's task is to think creatively while also considering safety.
It can be a little tough, especially if you're setting out to create large spans or open spaces, large glazed areas, a sense of transparency in buildings or lightness.
But safety is of utmost importance. That's why Tusani and his team have to abide by strict seismic codes introduced by the government in 1981. Standards that every new building must meet before it can be constructed, and that existing buildings had to meet to avoid demolition. But some of those buildings didn't need major renovations. Take Tusani's office, for example. It's a former rice shop constructed in 1976. Tusani says Japanese architects back then always took precautions. Japan's seismic codes are currently the strictest in the world, but scientists here aren't resting on their laurels. Masaki Saruta and his colleagues at Shimizu Corporation are working on the latest in quake-proof technology. They've designed mechanisms found in some of Tokyo's tallest buildings. Saruta himself was carrying out a research experiment when the March 11th, 2011 quake struck.
At that time, we worked at my laboratory office, shaking laboratory office. At first, in that building, the shaking laboratory is operating. The building is vibrate. So I couldn't understand the earthquake occurred. But the vibration of the building is so large. This was an earthquake, I noticed.
Another reason Saruta and his team didn't realize there was an actual quake at first is because of Shimizu technology installed in the foundation of its own research headquarters. These rubber shocks are fitted between the ground and first floors of the building. A camera recorded the effects of the 2011 earthquake. The shocks cut the movement above the ground floor by half. And Shimizu is testing other quake-proof technology with similar results.
There is a core in the center of the building. And
this pole right
yes, reinforced concrete building. Top of the core, we installed the rubber bearings.
And then if we look over here across the water, this
yes.
black building, what's happening here? What are you using here?
So that is we call partially float seismic isolation system. This building is float in the pool. That building is also 1/3 reduced of the ground motion.
But this kind of quake-proofing isn't cheap. It drives up the price of a building by an average 5%. But there are lower-cost alternatives. This is one of the latest technologies on the market, marketed by Shimizu Corporation. It's called the dynamic screw, and it's 20 to 30% cheaper than other technologies being sold at the moment. The way it works is it takes that lateral movement and turns it into rotation. You can see how that affects buildings. The one at the back has not been fitted with the dynamic screw, and this is what happens when the ground starts to move. But the majority of the destruction on March 11th, 2011 wasn't caused by the magnitude 9 earthquake. It was a massive tsunami, a wave estimated to be nearly 39 meters high that slammed into Miyako City on Amoe Peninsula. More than 15,800 people were killed. Entire communities were wiped out. And the aftermath triggered the nuclear crisis that the country still struggles with today. Professor Yasushi Asami from Tokyo University is one of the people tasked with making sure Tokyo doesn't suffer a similar fate. He and his researchers are working with urban planners on a city-wide disaster plan. Tsunami simulators help them design tidal wave defences. They're using this traffic flow map, which tracked 1.5 million mobile phone users across Tokyo during the 2011 disaster, as a way to learn from real-life experiences.
We gather a lot of very detailed information, kind of real-time information, and we could understand people's behavior at the disaster. And that kind of behavior can be analyzed, and also maybe we can know how to guide the people to, for example, evacuate from the, say, tsunami or other disaster areas.
Building a giant wall to guard Tokyo, or any city, from the wrath of the ocean would be impractical, if not impossible. So Professor Asami says the best bet for the city's residents, if a tsunami were to occur, is early detection and an organised escape plan.
The evacuation is very important and very critical because the tsunami is moving so fast and it's more than the running speed of the people. So actually, within a very limited time, the people have to move up to the higher place and safe place, or move very far from the tsunami. So it's very important to provide some kind of facilities that can be safely secure these people.
Designing buildings that can withstand tremors. Inventing and testing new technologies to keep structures secure. And finding a route to escape for millions of people. Tokyo is taking the threat of a megaquake and a possible tsunami seriously. But it won't be known if all the precautions and preparation will be effective until disaster actually strikes. For Assignment Asia, I'm Mike Fern in Tokyo.
The last time Tokyo experienced a major earthquake was in 1923. The Great Kanto quake flattened the city and left more than 105,000 people dead. Experts say technology will be key to saving lives if and when the mega quake strikes. Well, coming up after the break, how a community leader in India changed a centuries-old mindset and saved the lives of thousands of baby girls.
Culture Express. See the world in color.
Well, there's a saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and it refers to the difficulties in getting someone who's set in their ways to learn or try something new, but it's even harder to shift the attitudes of an entire community, of a notion that's been ingrained in their culture for centuries. But Shweta Bajaj met one man in the northwest Indian state of Rajasthan who has succeeded in doing just that.
The lake city of Udaipur is a major tourist spot with ancient forts and palaces that attract visitors from all over the world. 80 kilometers south takes us to a less popular destination, Rajasamand district. Not a place visitors normally go, but we have come to meet a visionary. This is Shyam Sundar Paliwal. His story started in 2005 when he became head of Pipilantri village.
मुझे ऐसा लगा कि मेरे गांव में कुछ काम होना चाहिए. यहाँ पर माइनिंग होती है, माइनिंग की वजह से यहाँ का
Because of mining, the water levels were low and the environment was damaged. I wanted to give a second life to my village. I believed our income should come from our land. Concrete jungles will only kill villages.
जंगल जब तक खड़े होंगे तब तक गांव का तो विनाश ही होगा.
So Shyam Sundar Paliwal introduced a plan to plant 111 trees for every girl born in the village. The scheme was in memory of one of his daughters who died in 2007. Its aim had two goals: create a sustainable way for people to make a living and to protect newborn girls. Rajasthan very much remains a patriarchal society, and families consider baby boys a blessing and baby girls a curse. Here, it's all too common for families to kill their newborn daughters or marry them off while they are still children. Shyam Sundar Paliwal wanted that to change. He knew these trees would be the catalyst because parents in Pipilantri would start associating prosperity with their daughters. These hills behind me are a hotbed for mining of stones that are later made into marble. The villagers decided to plant trees in these hills and take ownership of them from them getting exploited. In the bargain, they ended up creating one of the most environmentally conscious villages in India. Changing mindsets required a convincing argument and time, especially in an area where many families considered having a daughter to be a financial burden because they'd have to pay dowries upon marriage and kept their daughters from going to school or getting jobs outside the home. Shyam Sundar Paliwal had to convince them his tree planting venture was worthwhile.
You must have heard that in Rajasthan, people used to be very unhappy with the birth of a girl. In big households, girls used to be killed at birth. Our village is not like that, but there is no doubt that there has been a fall in the number of girls. I am the father of 2 girls, and I know the pain of losing one of my daughters.
In addition to planting 111 trees for every girl born, everyone in the village contributes to a fund for her. $400 in total is collected from village residents, $200 from the girl's father. That money goes into a fixed deposit, which matures when the girl turns 18. Her parents are required to sign an affidavit promising to send her to school and not to marry her off until she's of legal age. It wasn't long before Shyam Sundar Paliwal's plan began to show results. More than 250,000 trees have been planted over the last 6 years, proving lush green cover to what was once dry, barren land. But what is more remarkable is that the trees represent the births of more than 2,250 baby girls, who have all been registered under the investment scheme. There are a variety of trees, all with rich Ayurvedic nutrients. And to protect them from becoming infested with termites, the villagers planted over 2.5 million aloe vera plants around them. Now these plants have become a source of livelihood. Kala Paliwal works in this small production unit that processes the aloe vera plants into beauty creams, juice, soaps and other products. The women who work here now have financial independence and contribute to their family income, something previously unheard of in this part of the country.
We gather here once a week to work. All the products are made of pure aloe vera, and people who come from outside to see our village buy these products. We have benefited from this.
When Vimla gave birth to her daughter Drishti 3 years ago, it was celebrated by her family, something that's still very uncommon in Rajasthan. Vimla says Shyam Sundar Paliwal has succeeded in getting families in this village to associate daughters with economic prosperity.
There was nothing here. No greenery, no drinking water, no electricity, no roads, nothing. In 6 or 7 years, everything has changed. There were only dry hills and stones here before. Now you can only see prosperity and greenery. This has been possible because of the plan to plant trees to mark every girl's birth.
The men in the village agree and have changed their long-held stereotypes about baby girls and women in general. Shyam Sundar Paliwal retired as the village head in July 2010. He says he wanted to do something that people will remember him by. And a look at this village, where parents now consider a baby girl a treasure, shows he's well on his way to reaching that goal. For Assignment Asia, I'm Shweta Bajaj in Pipilantri village, India.
A true community leader there. Well, there's more on that story and the others you've seen this week on our website, assignment-asia.com. You can give us your feedback, share your thoughts, and even offer up ideas for future editions. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Roe Rettenberg. Thank you for watching, and do join us again on Assignment Asia.